Hey, welcome back. This is Jennifer Richmond, and this is the Dwelling Richly Bible Study. We are in Lesson 6, and this is Day 4, and I'm really glad that you're with me. If I am just popping up on your Facebook screen right now, hello, welcome, stick around. We have a great Bible study in store for you today. We're going to begin with prayer in just a second, and then off we go into our Bible study through Esther chapters 8. I think we're in chapter 8 today. We'll see in just a minute. I pop over the screen, and it's like it blanks my memory as I prep for everything and I get ready to go, and then I hit the record button, start recording. It's like, there it goes. Everything's gone. Anyway, let's go ahead and pray and we'll get started with our Bible study right now. Father God, thank you once again for our time together in your word. I pray your blessing on us right now in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, let's head on over to our study. Those of you who are listening aren't seeing this on the screen, but you can always join us over on Facebook or YouTube and see the screen. But you are seeing from Jennifer, my blog, jennifergrichmond.com. Really easy. Go over there and grab the Bible studies. Actually, any of the Bible studies that I write are available there on the blog. So go ahead on over and you can catch all of Ruth and all of Esther. And actually, if you're just joining us and you'd like to start back over and go through Ruth, this would be a fabulous Bible study for you to grab a couple friends and do that. So I encourage you to give it a try. You can get them available right there on the blog. So if you have ever any questions about that, feel free to email me and I'll get in touch with you about it as well. So today we are reviewing again Psalm 42. We write that there in the top box, and we've been going through all of Psalm chapter 42, and this is our final verse, and it goes like this: "Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God." Hopefully you've been doing well and getting all of Psalm 42 memorized. Our passage today, there it is. See, it's Esther 8. I don't know why I second guess myself when I do the intro. I don't have like little notes. There's no screen up there on the side. There's nothing that high tech. Just my little brain, which is not very high tech at all. Anyway, Esther 8, 1 through 8. And today we'll read. On that day, King Ahasuerus gave to Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was to her. And the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. Then Esther spoke again to the king. She fell at his feet and wept and pleaded with him to avert the evil plan of Haman the Agagite and the plot that he had devised against the Jews. When the king held out the golden scepter to Esther, Esther rose and stood before the king, and she said, "If it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and if the thing seems right before the king, and I am pleasing in his eyes, let an order be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, which he wrote to destroy the Jews who are in all the provinces of the king. For how can I bear to see the calamity that is coming on my people? Or how can I bear to see the destruction of my kindred?" Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and to Mordecai the Jew, "Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman. They have hanged him on the gallows because he intended to lay hands on the Jews. But you may write as you please with regard to the Jews in the name of the king, and seal it with the king's ring, for an edict in the name of the king and sealed with the king's ring cannot be revoked." So our meditation passage will be from Psalm 37 today. "Fret not yourself because of evildoers. Be not envious of wrongdoers, for they will soon fade like the grass and wither like the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. Refrain from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not yourself, it tends only to evil. For the evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait for the Lord shall inherit the land. In just a little while, the wicked will be no more. Though you look carefully at his place, he will not be there. But the meek shall inherit the land and delight themselves in abundant peace. The wicked plot against the righteous and gnashes his teeth at him. But the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he sees that his day is coming. The wicked draw the sword and bend their bows, and to bring down the poor and the needy, to slay those whose way is upright. Their sword shall enter their own heart, and their bows be broken. Better is the little that the righteous has than the abundance of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. The Lord knows the days of the blameless, and their heritage will remain forever. They are not put to shame in evil times. In the days of famine they have abundance, but the wicked will perish. The enemies of the Lord are like the glory of the pastures. They vanish like smoke. They vanish away. The wicked borrows but does not pay back, but the righteous is generous and gives. For those blessed by the Lord shall inherit the land, but those cursed by him shall be cut off. The steps of a man are established by the Lord, then he delights when he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be cast headlong, for the Lord upholds his hand. I have been young and am now old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken or his children begging for bread. He is ever lending generously, and his children become a blessing. Turn away from evil and do good, for so shall you dwell forever. For the Lord loves justice. He will not forsake his saints. They are preserved forever, but the children of the wicked shall be cut off. The righteous shall inherit the land and dwell upon it forever. The mouth of the righteous utters wisdom. His tongue speaks justice. The law of his God is in his heart. His steps do not slip. The wicked watches for the righteous and seeks to put him to death. The Lord will not abandon him to the power or let him be condemned when he is brought to trial. Wait for the Lord and keep his way, and he will exalt you to inherit the land. You will look on when the wicked are cut off. I have seen a wicked, ruthless man spreading himself like a green laurel tree, but he passed away, and behold, he was no more. Though I sought him, he could not be found. Mark the blameless and behold the upright, for there is a future for the man of peace, but transgressors shall be altogether destroyed. The future of the wicked shall be cut off. The salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their stronghold in time of trouble. The Lord helps them and delivers them. He delivers them from the wicked and saves them because they take refuge in him. Powerful. Hey, a quick reminder, don't forget to write your chapter your verses from Esther. We're writing all the way through the books of Ruth and Esther in this study, and now we're almost done with Esther. So hopefully you are doing well with that and have Esther written. So how were Esther and Mordecai blessed after the fall of Haman? Well, actually in several ways. Esther and Mordecai end up receiving Haman's household. So whatever property was Haman's now is Esther's, and then Esther ends up putting Mordecai in charge of Haman's own house, doesn't she? All right. And so in spite of blessing Esther and Mordecai, in spite of the blessing that Esther and Mordecai receive, what situation is still in play? How does Esther respond? Well, Esther was making this general request that she had made in chapter 7, verse 3, if you remember, and she's now making it much more explicit. She's bringing the king's attention back to this big issue. The decree Haman had written was sealed with the king's signet ring, and it was still in effect, even though Haman was dead. The immediate threat to Mordecai was averted, but the Jews are now still facing annihilation. And so by extending his scepter, the king is saying that he's favorable to Esther's plea, even though there's some challenges facing them. In order to make that happen, he's still saying, whatever you say, I want to give to you. All right, so get some coffee here. Consider our meditation passage for today. What verses from Psalm 37 do you find particularly applicable to the demise of Haman and the blessing of Esther and Mordecai? Well, Psalm 37 is this constant back and forth between David saying, I see the wicked, I see what they're doing, but I know their way is going to come to an end. I see the wicked, they seem to perish, but I know their way is coming to an end. And it's like how I feel sometimes when you see wickedness happening in the world, far away or even close to you, and injustice, things that you know go against God's moral law and God's ultimate plan. And when we have that kind of righteous indignation, God says he's on our side. When we're pleading our own case and it's selfish, our own gain, we need to be careful that we are taking God's name in vain, really, if we ask God to right our way when it's really our own selfish gain. Look what it says here. The steps of a man are established by the Lord when he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be cast headlong, for the Lord upholds his hand. So clearly we see that coming true in Mordecai and Esther's life. Their path is being established by him. Their step is being established by him. And then, let's see. This is interesting here. It says, the righteous shall inherit the land and dwell upon it forever. This is literally what ends up happening with Mordecai and Esther, because Mordecai and Esther end up inheriting or being given Haman's land, his own household, right? So this literally happens to them right here. Wait for the Lord and keep his way. He will exalt you to inherit the land. You will look on when the wicked are cut off. And again, more parallels there. Exactly what happens in the life of Haman and Mordecai and all that, because Haman gets killed, Mordecai gets his land along with Esther. So how was Esther's position of influence changed from the beginning of her story to this point here? Well, at the beginning of the story, she's just an orphan, insignificant, powerless, and really just doomed to die, all right? And now she's the queen of Persia, and she has the power. So she went from ultimately being very powerless as an orphan, and now she has not only been given the title of Queen of Persia, but she is given whatever the king wishes, basically. So she's given the power of the king himself right there for her. So what do you learn about the character and heart of God? And we always want to go back to that. So not only in this passage here, but I want us to go back to Deuteronomy and then ahead in prophecy to Hosea. And I've called that up here for us right here. He executes justice for the fatherless and the widow. He loves the sojourner, giving him food and clothing. So this passage from Deuteronomy would have predated Esther. And this is God speaking to his people right when he calls them out of Egypt and saying, this is who I am. This is the kind of God I am. I will execute, I will make justice happen for those who are fatherless and those who've been widowed. So we have Esther, obviously fatherless, although adopted by Mordecai. And we don't hear anything about Mordecai's wife. So it made me wonder, is Mordecai a widower? Right? Widows would have been way more hard up. Widowers would have been a man. But point being is God is looking out for the marginalized. God has a favorable eye, especially to those on the margins of society. The sojourner, which is what we're technically exiles, but they're not in their own land. So they're, in a sense, they're sojourners. So he's looking out. That's the main idea of God's character. Listen to what the prophet Hosea has to say about God. And a reminder here, where salvation comes from. Assyria shall not save us. We will not ride on horses. We will say no more our God to the work of our hands. In you, the orphan finds mercy. So again, echoing here the way that God looks after orphans, that orphans, those who are marginalized, the sojourners, are the ones that God especially looks after, knowing the heart of man, which would be a tendency to look past a sojourner, an exile. And I think this is an important thing to obviously remember in terms of the character of God in our day, because the character of God never changes. History changes, people change, circumstances change, the character of God never changes. So how is the character of God revealed in the events of Esther 1-8? What exactly is going on here? What is God doing here? Well, he's revealing himself again as somebody who is true to his word. Has he looked after Esther? Of course he has. Is he taking care of Mordecai as a righteous man? Of course he has. They are both sojourners, exiles, and especially Esther as an orphan. So let's go ahead and take a look at this chart here. And I want you to see the faithful and fearless, or fearless and faithful, righteous actions, and evil and corrupt, unrighteous actions. What series had to have happened? Which they all had to have happened for Esther and Mordecai to be in the position that they're now in. And sometimes we think of righteous actions propelling the story forward because we want those ones, but really it's unrighteous actions as well. And if we can map those out, I think in our story of Esther, I think that'll be an encouragement to us in our own life, because maybe you are feeling like you're on the receiving end of unrighteous actions. It might be something going on at work. It might be how you are being characterized or portrayed by people out there, your family member or a former friend, again, co-workers, things like that. It might be in general how you feel people like you are being characterized, whether it's by your race, whether it's by your religion, whatever it is. We need to, I believe, constantly keep in the forefront of our mind the character of God and see his historical pattern of grace and provision through righteous acts and even through unrighteous. So let's go back and take some time to review from chapter 1. All right, so what happens in chapter 1? The righteous act, chapter 1, go back and think about that. This is when the only righteous act that I can think really in chapter 1 is Vashti. I think her refusal to go before the king, in my opinion, was a righteous act. I don't think women need to be paraded like that. Could she have done it? Sure, she could have done it. But for whatever reason, to me, her refusal to be paraded around like a piece of meat, like an object, is righteous. So the righteous act, Queen Vashti. What ends up happening? Well, unrighteous acts are the king is continually drunk. He demands Queen Vashti to come forward, and then he ends up deposing, decrowning her as the queen. Unrighteous, right? Not fair, not good, not the right thing to do. All right, chapter 2. Well, in chapter 2, we meet Mordecai. And what righteous act do we see there? Well, it doesn't happen right in that moment, but we see the history, and that is that Mordecai has adopted and raised this girl, this Esther, as his own. We see Esther being portrayed as obedient, and that she's honorable and she's favored, and Mordecai reports the plot also. And so the righteous acts there. All right, so the king is looking for a new queen through this harem and collection of all the women. That's unrighteous. That's taking women and objectifying them and essentially enslaving them into your harem. And don't mistake that. I've mentioned this before. This isn't something for us to glorify. Oh my gosh, I get to be in the queen's harem. No, this is in the sex slave, and this was the way society worked and how men objectified women. And no, that's not good, and that's not righteous. Men should be with one woman. So this is an unrighteous act of this evil, drunken king. And what else do we see in chapter 2? Well, eunuchs plotting to assassinate the king also, and Mordecai not getting any recognition for it. All right, so what happens in chapter 3? Well, Mordecai remains humble, we see. Haman or Haman is the one that gets elevated, and Mordecai just is silent, basically, and he remains humble during this whole thing. And then Haman begins the plotting. So that's the unrighteous move there in chapter 3. All right, 4, 5, and 6, righteous and unrighteous. In chapter 4, we see Mordecai fasting. That's a righteous thing to do, and Esther joining him as well. What unrighteous thing do we see happening? Not a lot. It's really just the going back and forth between Esther and Mordecai. It's in response to something unrighteous. What about chapter 5? Esther is fearless. She is faithful, and she does go before the king. And Haman, what about him? He's unrighteous, and he ends up plotting and plots to hang Mordecai. Chapter 6, Mordecai is rewarded, isn't he? That's a righteous thing. And not really unrighteous, because everything kind of starts getting vindicated. And then Esther in chapter 7 gets bolder and speaks very clearly about what the situation is. That's her righteous act. And although we're kind of happy to see it happen, think about this. An unrighteous thing that happens is that the king, what does he do? Well, the king falsely accuses Haman of making a move on the queen, attacking, molesting the queen. So we're kind of happy and we feel like he deserves that anyway, but it wasn't fair. He wasn't doing that according to the passage. So anyway, Interesting, right? Do you think that was interesting? I thought it was, to kind of go back and forth and move between what moves the storyline along, righteous acts and unrighteous acts, both as they were. So that'll bring us pretty close to being up to date. Let me go ahead and close with this final thought. In spite of David's encouraging reminder to not fret because of evildoers, this is from our meditation, you recall, I find myself often doing exactly that. Call me Jennifer McFretsAlot. But I see the evil, and it seems to be going on and on without being punished. I get sad and frustrated until I see God. I mean, really see him. See in my mind what he's famous for, making things right. Then, rather than hitting the rewind button in my mind and continually replaying all the stupid, evil nonsense in the world, I kick that DVD out and pop in this one. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Befriend faithfulness. Now that's a friend I need and want. I take faithfulness by the hand. We kneel together, walk together, and delight in God together. Then I keep my eyes on him, my ears attentive to his words, my heart freed from fretting and faithful in following his lead. And what a difference that makes. Do you fret also? Do you look around and see what's going on and think, this is never going to get better? This is always going to be like this. And then we act rashly in that moment of fear. I do. I get like that. All right. Hopefully this is an encouragement to you. It's been an encouragement to me, not only to write that for you a few weeks ago, but to reread it again today and think, oh my gosh, how is it possible that I can be so faithful and have a thought in my mind and even write a Bible study so that we'll focus on this. And then in between that moment and this, I look back and go, here I was, unfaithful in my trusting of God and getting fretful and everything anyway. So anyway, God bless you. I'm glad that you were here today. I hope this lesson was helpful and encouraging for you. And as always, remember you are loved and prayed for. And I appreciate you being here and leaving me that comment and letting me know that you were here. So say hi. And until we meet again, know that you are loved and prayed for. Bye-bye for now.